Hello, my name is Chris McKenzie. I'm going to be instructing on how to install Active Directory Certificate Services on Windows Server 2008 Enterprise or Data Center Edition. This is for my class project for CIST 2413 Microsoft Network Infrastructure course. First thing we wish to do is click on the Quick Launch icon for Server Manager or go through the Start menu. On the Server Manager screen window, we click on the Roles node in the left pane and click on Add Roles in the right pane. We bring up the Add Roles wizard. Select Server Roles screen. We see that Active Directory Domain Services is installed. This is required for Enterprise Edition and will be detailed at a later step. For now, we click on Active Directory Certificate Services checkbox and click on Next. We click on Next on the Introduction to Active Directory Certificate Services screen, which details what Active Directory Certificate Services is for, wishes to provide organizations more security. On the Select Role Services screen, we have Certification Authority already checked. This is required for using ADCS. The other options we have is Certification Authority Web Enrollment, which provides a web interface via a browser to request certificates individually. We have Online Responder, which makes certificate revocation checking data accessible to clients in complex networks. Larger organizations, it creates more efficient use to check the status of your own certificate as opposed to downloading an entire certification revocation list, which could be a burden on networks for bandwidth. So we would check that and add the required role services for Web Server IIS. The other thing we have here is Network Device Enrollment Services. This is for routers and switches that do not have network accounts. We will not be using that, so we just click Next here. Specify setup type, we have Enterprise or Standalone. Enterprise requires either the Enterprise or Data Center Edition. Standalone only requires the Standard Edition for Windows Server 2008. The difference is that Enterprise will use Active Directory to verify the credentials of users and systems. Standalone will have to manually approve certificate requests through an administrator. So we will use Enterprise and click Next. We will use a root CA for installing a first or only certification authority and the public key infrastructure network. We will use a subordinate CA to create a hierarchy, and if we have other CAs involved, but I do not, so we will use root CA. For the setup private key, we're going to create a new key unless we have an existing one to use. We're just going to use a new key. For here, we have the different type of algorithms for the cryptographic service provider. We can use any of them, it doesn't really matter. For the key character length, the longer the key character, the more secure it is. We just use the default. Click Next. The configure CA name, we can configure it to be more specific, whatever intended use we have. For now, we'll just use the default. Click Next. For the validity period, we'll just use the default, or you can specify whatever you want. We'll just click Next. For the database logs, we can specify where we want the certificate database locations logs to go. We'll just use the default. Click Next. This Web Server IIS screen is, for the other Online Responder, since it required the extra service role. So we'll click Next here and use the default for the Select Role Services for the Web Server. Click Next. Now we are at the Confirm Installation Selection screen. We can see what options we chose and if we wish to go back and edit that. So that is it. We just click Install and, if need be, reboot the machine.